Hi, I'm Marriage Coach Lynn. Welcome to day 17 of Reenergize Your Marriage in 21 Days. Today, we're going to be talking about love language. So what is language? Imagine you went to a foreign country and you do not know the language. You're going to France, you're going to China, and you've never studied those languages which are spoken predominantly in those countries. And so you go to this country, you're not understanding the words, you're not understanding the meaning, you're really struggling, maybe you're being polite and you're nodding and you're trying to grasp onto the little bits and pieces. And so when you don't know the language, you can't understand, you can't form a connection. And just like in a marriage, we want to form compatibility, understanding, connection, especially an emotional connection. So, what does love language have to do with anything? Well, I would like to introduce a book to you if you haven't. Have you ever heard of Gary Chapman, The 5 Love Languages? Now, this book sold 6 million copies, and the author, again, is Dr. Gary Chapman, and he talks about 5 predominant love languages that people have. And I want to get into those. And today, I'd like you to begin to think, if you're not familiar with this at all, what might your love language be, and what is the love language of your spouse? Now, I don't really want you to hurry up and try to figure it out in one day if you've never heard of this. If you have heard of it and you know your love language and your partner's love language, that's great. You can really hone in on communicating, knowing the love languages. But you might want to pick up a copy of the book and take a look at it. It's in the library, it's online. You can really get an inexpensive copy, probably in a used bookstore. You can get it easily. I will say that Dr. Chapman, as does every author, has a bias or a perspective. His perspective is Christian. So if you are a non-Christian and are turned off by or do not agree with the tenets of Jesus Christ, then I'm not going to say the book will be irrelevant to you. You just might skip over certain things. But I have had clients who I recommended this book to, and they have found great benefit in this book. So Dr. Chapman really makes it easy to understand, and I think it's applicable to all faiths. But I did want to say that because I know that some people do not like to cross over in different materials that might have a hint of a different religion or perspective. I find it very tasteful, and most of his books are wonderful. So the 5 love languages. Well, again, why is this important? Well, when we have a relationship with people who we love, we want to give and receive love, don't we? We want to understand. We want to be emotionally connected. So, the love languages, I would like to tell you what the 5 languages are. We're not going to go into depth here, but we're just going to kind of hit the surface. So the 5 love languages are acts of service, quality time, words of affirmation, giving gifts, and physical touch. Now here's what's interesting. We all grew up with parents who probably had different love languages. We ourselves have a certain love language preference, and then we get married and our partner might have a different love language. So we really need to sort through. To get the most of your relationship, it would be really great to know your partner's love language. For example, when I discovered my husband's primary love language was words of affirmation, I made sure to pay particular attention to positive verbal communication with him, using the right words. And it doesn't mean excessive talking and chattering to get a point across. There's a really fine line in learning how to communicate your spouse's preferred love language. So when I discovered that, I think I became more effective in relating to him, and him with me, vice versa. My love language primary is quality time, followed by physical touch. So those are important things. Let's say a wife's love language is receiving gifts. She likes gifts. Birthday parties are important, Christmas, anniversaries. She would prefer to have and get excited and motivated by nice gifts. I'm not saying that someone is materialistic. I'm just saying she responds to gifts. Let's say the husband travels 15 out of 30 days a month. You know, if he brings her gifts, she is having needs met. All right, so let's see. I want you to identify your love language and that of your spouse. And guess what? What we complain most about, what we criticize, often will show us a possible need that we have. So that's kind of interesting when you're trying to figure out what your love language is. So let me just read for a second here what those love languages are. And this is really a brief summary of it. Words of affirmation: appreciates and needs encouraging and kind words, frequent verbal compliments, dislikes harsh, stinging, negative communication and complaints. Repetitive nagging and criticism are particularly annoying. So notice how I said the word needs. I emphasize needs. These love languages are almost a need. I say preference, but it almost becomes a need. Quality time, the second love language. Strong need to spend time together. Focused attention, meaningful activities, and conversation. That is so me, and that's why I like the day 7, 14, and 21, the recreational time. I would prefer, someone like me prefers to take our 20th wedding anniversary and take a 4-hour bike ride and go out to lunch and spend time together rather than some big trip or some big party. So I like the quality time. That appeals to me. So my husband knows me and knows that would be something I'd like to do, and vice versa. If you know what your spouse prefers, what's really hard is oftentimes we operate on our own love language and reflect that to our partner. So take an extra awareness here of what is it that motivates your partner. So the third love language is receiving gifts. In addition to material gifts, it is important to give the gift of yourself, especially in times of crises. For example, the gift of your love and compassion when your spouse is sad or down or lonely or is having difficulty in a work situation. Let's say there's a hospitalization. So you think that's quality time, spending time with the person, but the gift of yourself is very important. Gifts do not need to be expensive or given regularly. And you don't have to go broke. You don't have to constantly feel that under pressure to keep on bringing trinkets to your spouse. That's not really what it's about. Receiving gifts show that you care, love, and are thinking of your partner. So even a nice little note, showing attention and affection through gifts. Fourth love language, acts of service, doing tasks and chores willingly for your partner. Isn't it neat when you can just do something extra and special and go out of your way for your partner when they're not even expecting it, serving them and serving their needs. They have a high need for orderly household and environment. And physical touch, which many authors will say often is a masculine preference, and it's not just sex. It is touching, massages, hugs, just a little touch, just your connection. It's of the 5 senses. It's important, and that without it, a partner could feel like a loss of love, a lack of love. So expressing yourself physically will show that partner they feel love when you express the need that they prefer. Most of us have a primary and a secondary love language. So we all may have needs in these areas, but you'll find if you read this book, The 5 Love Languages, How to Express Heartfelt Commitment to Your Mate by Dr. Gary Chapman, you'll find that You might dip in and out of many of these, but you will probably find that there's a predominant one. And also, it's great knowing what your children's love languages are. My youngest son, when he was 5 or 6, came to me as I was typing on the computer, Mom, Mom. And he took my chin in his hands and he turned my face to him to look him in the eye so he can, and our faces were close so he could talk to me. And I'm like, quality time. And he's now 13, and yes, quality time seems to be his love language. Now, the benefit of knowing your partner's love language is that we increase our closeness and our emotional bond. We increase our appreciation. We add to the harmony of our marriage. And I think I've talked about Love Tank or your bank account. We want to make deposits rather than withdrawals. And we want to fill our love tank. So I highly encourage you to learn your love language and that of your spouse and take your time and have fun with it. Thank you.